You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So let's explore. I know you guys probably think I'm talking crazy when I say this, but there is a path to SEC relevancy for the Vanderbilt Commodores. And I wouldn't be saying this if we weren't in the NIL transfer portal, let's just call it what it is, free agency phase of college football. I think Vandy has realized what capabilities they have now that you can pay people legally, now that it's not against the rules. And that's a really good thing for this, because I don't know if anybody realizes how much wealth lies within Vanderbilt. I think there's a lot of NIL money to be had. I think there's a lot of donors that I think, if things continue to improve, would love to help out the program and would love to get this thing on the map in a situation to where they're competing every single year. Now, I don't know if the expectations are going to be college football playoff every single year. It would seem like a dream, seem like a weird dream, but a really good dream to get to that point to where every year we're complaining that Clark Lea didn't get to the college football playoff. That's where we are. That's how we've gotten here. Okay. And that's pretty fun. That's pretty fun to think about, because 2 seasons ago, we were trying to figure out if Clark Lea was right for the job. We were trying to figure out if Vandy was ever going to get above the threshold of 4 or 5 wins in this league. We were starting to wonder if Vanderbilt was ever going to go to a bowl game. So this is all exciting stuff, and it's quite the turnaround as well. And so that's what's kind of, I think, got everything thrown off, because people just still aren't used to seeing that, hey, Vanderbilt is building a hell of a roster. They've got some NIL stuff happening. They're improving. Now, they're still towards the bottom of the league in spending, but they are increasing that number, and they're slowly creeping up there to being able to do that. And I think little by little they're chipping away at it, and I think they're gonna see that the more they get involved with that, the more success they have, and the better rosters they're going to have coming in. So I'm all for that. I think this is going to be a really, really good thing. NIL, recruiting, all of that. You're starting to get bigger names in the portal, like Jordan White. He's going to be drafted. Like they're gonna put a graphic up that says Jordan White, Vanderbilt, and he may be a day. Centers don't typically go first round. He may be a 3rd, 4th, 5th round guy, but like that's just kind of where centers go. And so he's going to get drafted. They're going to talk really highly of him. He's going to be an NFL lineman. I think they're going to have plenty of those guys. I think Bryce Henderson's going to be an NFL lineman whenever he goes. Because at 6'8", 320, and a dominant run blocker, you can only, I don't know, he's going to have to improve on his pass setting and his pass protection, which he'll get a chance to do. But I mean, I think you have a ton of, I think you got to start sending guys to the NFL as well. I think you start getting some of these transfer portal guys. They come, Jordan White he was already going to be, if he can go from like being a 5th, 6th rounder to like jumping, like if he can somehow push his way from day 3 to day 2 getting picked, I think that'll be a huge win for Vanderbilt, because they're like, hey, he came in, as an NFL guy, but we improved his draft stock and we got him a better payday and we got him a better chance to be a starter in the National Football League. He did that while he was at Vanderbilt. You should come to Vanderbilt too. Like that's the kind of thing that they can do with developing, with creating NIL opportunities. Hey, you can come here, make a good, earn a decent living, and then you can develop for the NFL, and you can go on and play in the National Football League. Like I think that's something that you look at. I mean, if I'm Vanderbilt, I'm touting Julian Ashby going as a long snapper, getting drafted by Mike Vrabel in the New England Patriots. Like I'm all over that. Like you have to take your wins where you get them when you're trying to build, when you're trying to rise up the ranks, rise up and climb that ladder, because you have to start somewhere, right? And I know people are like, oh, it's just a 7th round long snapper. Well, let's just put it this way. How many, well, besides Haybill, which I think Haybill was the only one from last year's group that got drafted. You got a guy drafted, and you got a couple picked. You got a few guys picked up in free agency. Quincy Skinner to the Falcons, Stephen Lasoya to the Carolina Panthers. Congratulations, by the way. You have to tout those kind of things, and the social media team, I think, did that. I don't think they did. I know they did that, and they did a good job of it. I think they did a good job of touting these guys, getting those next level opportunities. I don't care what those opportunities are at this point. You've got to throw that out there. If people see the V and the NFL shield together in the same graphic, it just catches your eyes. Like, okay, you're in the SEC, you got that opportunity because you got reps and you got good film and you showed that you could do it. Because I don't know that Julian Ashby gets drafted out of Furman. He comes to Vanderbilt, plays in the SEC, proves to be a really good long snapper, not only snapping the ball to the punter and the placeholder, it's also covering the kicks, getting down there as the gunner, making sure you down the ball before it gets returned, or making sure you break down and making a play on the return guy. Like those type of things also, people in the NFL value, like people, especially people like Mike Vrabel, they value special teams. And so anytime you can highlight that, man, that's so good. And anytime you can get a special teamer, like, that they think he's special. Like he's a special teamer that got drafted. He's making the team. Like he's going to make the team. And that's exciting for Vanderbilt. They have a guy who got drafted and will play NFL football off of this team. Like when I say this team, I mean like this past year, 2024 overhaul season. Got a guy drafted, got 2 undrafted free agents that have chances to make the roster. I think Stephen Lasoya is going to have a really good shot at making a roster. I think Quincy Skinner is going to have a shot, if he can play some special teams, at making that roster. I don't know what the Atlanta Falcons have down the line at wide receiver, but his chance is going to be, can he get in there and be an ace on special teams? So I'm really excited about that. So here's some things I think. Here's their path, right? Like I said, continue to grow NIL, portal recruiting, and development. Like that's the thing. You get these guys in. You show that you're willing to spend the money. You'll become relevant. You recruit guys out of the portal, spend the money on the right guys, get them in here and develop them, develop their brand, develop them as a player, develop them, just develop the full package of the player, right? You develop him as a brand, like the guy pictured here, Diego Pavia. You develop him as a total brand, and he might have some opportunities. He might have an NFL opportunity. I don't know what that looks like. I have no idea how the scouts and everybody views him, but he's got a brand. He's a recognizable figure. He's a superstar in college football because of NIL, because of the city of Nashville getting behind him. His personality certainly doesn't hurt. But like, you get these guys in here and you improve their stock in one way or the other. Like he's gonna have a really nice career after he gets done playing, whether that's in the NFL or somewhere else. Vanderbilt developed him in every aspect, right? Julian Ashby is another example of that. You develop them in the aspect of their game. Julian Ashby was not an NFL guy coming out of Furman. He was not going to get drafted, probably not even looked at, but you go to Vanderbilt, now you get drafted. Like that's how you do it. Like Jordan White, we'll see. He comes in. He's an NFL guy. He's probably a late day 3 guy, late 5th, 6th, maybe 7th round center, gonna make a roster, all that stuff. That's where he stands right now. But I think within this offense is going to be perfect and give him a perfect opportunity to develop his communication skills as a center, blocking in the run on the next level, and showing his athletic ability against NFL defenders. I don't know if you know this. The SEC had 1 million guys. I think the SEC had almost 257 guys drafted, it felt like. So he's going to get a chance to do that against NFL level players. And that's going to be a chance for him to improve and get his draft stock up to round 4, round 3. I don't know there's a whole lot of centers going in round 2. If he did, that would be an amazing win, right? So you just have to kind of continue to grow, develop, and all that stuff. So in order to continue, the path to relevancy starts there. It starts with NIL, starts with recruiting, starts with development. You get the guys in and you develop them and make them better than they are. If guys see that, if I'm a portal guy and I see that Vandy is going to pay me, they're not going to cheap out, and they're going to improve my stock as a brand and as a player, I'm going to go there. Like, the idea of there's an idea that these schools can rebrand themselves as, and get a chance to get a seat at the table, right? I don't know that Mississippi State has that chance because they're just NIL poor, I think. But Vandy has been able to hit that reset button. So that's kind of the first thing that they can do is to spend the money and develop the guys while they're here. And they can't develop the guys without an elite staff infrastructure. Next. Let me ask you guys a question. Have you ever checked your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? I wonder that all the time. It's like you open a window and it just flies out. Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO. And it gives you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. And when I started using Monarch, I just realized how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. And I love the all-in-one convenience. And so instead of juggling multiple apps, I can use, and you can use, Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term. So it also makes collaboration easy as well. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever, and you can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. This article by Chris Lowe, okay, I thought this was a very well-written piece, and I wanted to react to it because I think the topic is really, really good. I think the topic is very accurate. And a lot of people, because I think a lot of people are thrown off by it because perception is often reality. And the perception of Vanderbilt still is they're a bottom dweller. They'll never win anything of significance. They're always going to be that circled win on your schedule. They're never going to get a top flight coach. Clark Lea got lucky with Diego Pavia. They caught people off guard. I can hear all of those narratives, and I do hear all of those narratives. And when people find out that I host Locked On Vandy, they're like, "Why?" And then they ask me like, "Yeah, Vandy's going to come crashing back down to earth, aren't they?" And I'm like, "Well." And I know they have. I know that the precedent is not good because this would be the first time they've had back-to-back winning seasons since James Franklin was here in 2013 or 12 and 13. And so it is it's very much warranted right now. Some of the doubt. But again, I see something different. And normally if I hadn't taken on this show, I probably wouldn't have seen it. I probably would have just been like, yeah, they might be right. I don't know. He's going to have to kind of prove it. But I don't know. Like there's something different within this program. And I think you could see, and I paid attention to Vandy because I live here in Nashville. I just wasn't as close to paying attention to Vandy as I am now since I've been doing the show. But the situation they inherited from Derek Mason was completely awful. Like that, the train had fell off the tracks. It had wrecked. It was turned over and mangled on the side of the tracks there in the woods, like flipped upside down, like rusted out. It was a bad program when he took over. And Derek Mason had a good start to it. to his tenure, and it just kind of fell apart. And some of that was COVID, and some of that was the fact that Vanderbilt, I think, was as a university and as a university administration, were going through some things where they weren't feeling like athletics was worth their time. They just wanted to be an academic powerhouse, and that was it. And so that wasn't happening. But and I think they decided. I think Clark Lea has shown them that they, hey, he's a Vanderbilt guy. He can have success, and he can help this team bring in some success, and he can get Vanderbilt to the point of like a Stanford or like Duke is an elite university academically, and they have an elite basketball team with a pretty decent football team, right? Their football team hasn't been great, but basketball has been elite for a few decades now. So they've shown that they can do that. And so for Vanderbilt, they're starting to show, and they're thriving a little bit now because I think people are starting to realize. I think the light bulb is coming on for a lot of people, including Candace Story Lee, who I think is slowly starting to, build this program up, market it, things like that. Now, has she made her fair share of mistakes? Yes, absolutely. It's not perfect, never will be, never expect it to be. But if Vanderbilt can just kind of get themselves into the NIL landscape, I think, and I've talked about it on the show, I think they have potential to do some real damage, because if they can change the perception of who they are, because I think the last piece of it is showing that they can win fairly consistently and going to bowl games year in and year out. I think that's the goal. I think you have to just start with, hey, let's make bowl games every year. And, I get that. I get that Diego Pavia and them want to, their goal is obviously national championship or make the playoffs and, on down the line. But I think realistically, you're just not quite there yet as a program, and that's okay. From where you were to, season before last, you were just about at rock bottom. And we weren't sure if Clark Lea was the right guy. And I think a lot of people are still not sure that Clark Lea's the right guy. And I don't know where that comes from. I don't know what else he has to do except for go out and do it again. I think you win 8 games, you can show that, hey, we can do this, right? And I think that's going to make a lot of people happy. What's really cool also is the fact that Vanderbilt as a university for the first time has a college football team that was ranked, albeit briefly, but they were ranked. Had a college basketball team, men's and women's, competed in the NCAA tournament, first round knockout. But considering where these two programs were a very short time ago, a year, it's pretty impressive. And then a baseball team that is, I think they've made 18 straight postseason tournaments or regionals at least. And I think they're poised to, make another run here. We'll talk about them later. So this is going to be, kind of a unique situation. So it's a university that's doing the right things to help their teams thrive. And this is everything that they're doing doesn't even take place on the field yet. Like, they're raising money, they're building facilities, they're making things good for the fans. I wish they'd bring back the swinging scoreboard that was held by 2 cranes. I think that should be a staple of Vanderbilt football. No, I kid. But they're starting to get involved in the NIL. They're starting to get their facilities up to grade. And I know people are like, well, it's about time. Well, it's never too late. You just need to do it when you do it. And they're showing that they're getting serious. But here's the thing, though. As college football is evolving, I think it's good that Vandy is evolving with it. I think Vandy is also, I think for this football team, especially, Clark Lea is determined that, hey, and he said this in a quote. He's like, we're not going to out Alabama. We're not going to out Georgia. We have to do things a little bit differently. And that is, I think that's a good philosophy to have. Like, you have to, if you're going to thrive, you can't try to be somebody else. You just can't. And I think that's where Vandy has gone right in this whole scenario. I think that's why they've turned things around, because they weren't trying to play the same game. The in Major League Baseball, there's surprise teams that come through the postseason and win. Like I know the Rays didn't end up winning, but their payroll is not anywhere near what the Yankees or the Dodgers or the Red Sox. They're not going to there's different ways to be successful in Major League Baseball, just like there's different ways to be successful in college football. Now, in NIL, they're going to have to spend a little bit more, and Ohio State's proving that. But until there's guardrails, I think you're just going to have to take these marginal gains and just kind of run with them, and take these little wins and turn them into slightly bigger wins, and so on and so forth until you do get to that point. But I think doing it a little bit differently is the way to go, and I think that was the right move. I think getting not some young hotshot offensive coordinator that's just going to try to do the same thing that everybody else is doing. I think is something that I think Clark Lea took a chance on. Like he's like, okay, I'm gonna hire Tim Beck, and a lot of people are like, what, Tim Beck? And that was a move that ended up being really good. And it's the reshaping of the player personnel stuff, the analytics stuff, the player analysis, the scouting departments, the analysts that work with the coordinators and making sure they get every ounce of scouting, the philosophy, all that stuff. Like it is, I think, very meticulously planned. And as I laid out in the overhaul, it is something that I really, really think that's benefiting this program. I'm really excited that they're finding their way, right? They're finding their way. You have to be, and Tim Beck said this a little bit different. And Tim Beck said this, and I thought this was a good quote within the article. He said, "I know Coach Lea doesn't believe that we can be like every other SEC team philosophically and find ways to break through to the top." He said, you have to be a little bit different, and we were a little bit unique, and I'm not one of these young offensive coordinators that's just trying to score as many points every game. You have to find ways to reduce the margins a little bit, so you've got to play complementary football. So we still want to be fun and exciting, which I feel like we are, but we're not going to be in a huge hurry. We led the nation in fewest turnovers last year, which was huge for us because the matchups that we had player to player are not still there yet, but we've got to be smart about what we do on both sides of the ball. So what that means is this. They held the ball. Time of possession was a huge stat for Vanderbilt, and that led to a lot of wins. If the other team doesn't have the ball, they can't score, and that puts pressure psychologically on the other team. So being unique, being different, being exciting, I think they went about it being ball control excitingly. I think Diego Pavia helped that at being who he is, and everything that with his game, with his attitude, which is very contagious throughout the university, which is phenomenal, and his leadership qualities and all of that. I think you take the full package that you get with Diego Pavia. It don't matter what you do offensively, you're going to have an exciting offense because he's going to get everybody fired up about it. So this is something that, defensively, you got to be a little bit differently. Organizationally, you got to be a little bit different. You've got to find ways to find an edge that's not just like the other guys. And unfortunately for NIL, you're going to have to kind of get in there and compete with the big boys, but you're going to have to find I think the ace in the hole is your scouting department and finding those hidden gems. Like Trey Richardson could be an absolute hidden gem for Vanderbilt. He came out of Division II. He was recruited by Tim Beck and Jerry Kill out of high school to go to New Mexico State. Those are the things you have to do as Vanderbilt until you can start to build. I think a program that a lot of teams should look towards is what Ole Miss has done. And the fact that they got more highly involved in NIL as it went along too with Lane Kiffin. And when he took over, they weren't a great program. Now they weren't a perennially bad program like Vanderbilt was, but they're a program that was very inconsistent, and like they'd go to a bowl game and then they'd go like 3-9, and then they'd go to a bowl game. They go to a couple bowl games, like small bowl games, and they go 3-9 a couple seasons. Like Vanderbilt was kind of all over the place. Not Vanderbilt, Ole Miss was kind of all over the place. So anyway, I think, and I'm going to continue. This article has so much in it. I can't fit it into an entire episode because I got other things I want to get to and discuss that are kind of shape and mold the perception of Vanderbilt. But I'll leave you with this. Vanderbilt. I'll leave you with this quote too. I think we as a program, me in particular, can't help but operate with a chip on our shoulder, and you can't help but bathe in the doubt that surrounds you. So what that quote means is this. We're going to take that doubt, we're going to use it to fuel the fire, and we're going to play with a chip on our shoulder, and we're going to come after you. And this team showed that last season. They showed that. They showed that resolve. They showed that chip on the shoulder, except for the Georgia State game. They were like, you know what? And there's a quote that I can't put on here, but Diego Pavia said, basically, watch us. You want to doubt Coach Lee? You want him fired? You want all this stuff? Well, watch us win. Watch us do what we got to do. And I think that's really, really good. I think if Vanderbilt can play with that edge, they're going to be pretty good. I said it about baseball. They got to play with edge. They're doing it. Basketball is starting to do that. Now football, they started to do it, but they can continue to get more edge and play with that chip because now they're going to be targeted. So anyway, we'll talk more about this article on other episodes. We've got plenty of time between now and the start of football season to kind of break down all the different ways that I think is going to lead to one thing. Vandy is thriving right now, and I think they're on the rise. The whole Nico Iamaleava thing got me thinking with guys heading into the portal, looking for a bigger payday. Demarion Thomas did an episode about him jumping into the portal. I'm not real sure what his motives were, but he was a projected starter. Those guys rotate a lot anyway. So I don't know if him jumping in the portal is anything other than money. I mean, I don't know if he's struggling in school. I don't know if that's a factor. I don't know if those other guys were nipping at his heels on the depth chart and his playing time was decreasing and he was floating downward on the chart. I'm not real sure. But from all the information that I have, this looks like Vandy's first money grab. This guy wants more money. He wants to find an opportunity that will benefit him, but he's a starter in the SEC for a team that's on the rise, playing against probably one of the toughest schedules in all the country. So if you're wondering about NFL status, they don't care about wins and losses. The NFL watches your film, watches how you play against top competition. They don't care if you go 1-11, 0-12, 12-0. They don't care. If you're good enough, if these NFL people feel like you're good enough to play for them, they will draft you, whether you're at Hofstra or you're at Georgia. They don't care. They find good players. That's what they're paid to do. So if he's looking for NFL potential, like I think him getting SEC film would have been the best route for that. But I'm not real sure. Maybe he's chasing NIL. It's certainly in a position to where a lot of people are probably doing the same thing. So, is Vandy, could it be that he wanted something? Vandy was like, nah, we're going to pay you this, and this is our offer. And he said, no, thank you. And I'm going to go to the portal and all that stuff. Like, is it one of those scenarios again? Like, that's something until they get guardrails on this thing. That's something you're going to have to deal with as a program. You're going to have starters likely jumping ship because they're not liking their deal. They're not liking their playing time or a combination of both. They don't feel like their NIL deal matches their impact on the team, which I don't know that defensive line is a very lucrative position money-wise at any level. So if he goes out and improves the situation, gets paid really well, ends up in the NFL, more power to him. I have zero problem with guys, looking for that money grab. Doesn't mean I have to agree with it, but if that's what he feels like he needs to do, great. and I don't want to turn this into Marion Thomas, but it kind of like that's kind of the culture that you're dealing with. Okay. So in order to know how to be successful, you have to understand where the culture is. You have to meet it where it's at. So the keys to it being successful, I kind of narrowed it down to like 3 major points. There's probably a lot more. And if you know of some that I'm not talking about, leave it in the comments. But the first thing is first, Anchor Impact needs to continue to spend aggressively. They've got the money. There's a well somewhere that if they tap it, this could be a major, major deal, right? If Anchor Impact can find a way to really tap into it before they start putting salary caps on it and all that stuff, before they start regulating it, you can build yourself into a really good program. So you go out and spend it aggressively. Now you have to evaluate where you're spending it, and you have to figure out, okay, what's the most important thing? What do we need? What's the market value for this position? What's the market value for a guy transferring from, let's say, Ohio? Defensive lineman. What's the market for that? Right. And then you go and you outbid. I mean, it is just like NFL free agency, except there's as far as bidding goes for transfer portal guys, it's pretty much like NFL free agency. So you have to spend aggressively, and you have to not be afraid to spend and get guys out of the portal. Because if you're afraid, then you're just not going to get anybody. And I think Vandy is learning that, because the quality of the transfers and the quantity of the transfers have increased, and you're getting bigger name guys, and you're getting more, I guess you're getting guys that are starters and things like that. And you're not having to take chances now, because also it helps that you're a little bit more on stable ground now with Clark Lea, and he's not wondering if he's getting fired, or everybody around him is not wondering if he's getting fired. And, and the Anchor Impact is probably in a position to where now they're willing to spend, because they're not worried about, hey, if we spend all this money for this coach, we're going to waste it because the next coach is going to come in and clean house. So they're not worried about that anymore. So they're going to continue to spend aggressively. So that's the first thing. If you got the money, use it. Use it. Build your roster. That's what you're there for. All right, find a way to take advantage of the city's willingness to jump on board. Okay? Now, if you know anything about Nashville, you know this. Nashville wants to jump on something that's Nashville's own. UT is not Nashville's own. There's a lot of UT fans here. There's a lot of them that have been in the comments on this show this week, even, and I appreciate that, by the way. But Nashville wants to support. They just, I think they could get behind Vanderbilt if they gave them a reason to, right? They got on board with the NFL draft. And I know that's kind of apples and oranges. That's a big event. They got behind the Preds. Like, they wanted Nashville people want to get behind stuff, right? They want to support their local stuff. And Vanderbilt is locals, right in the backyard, right in the heart of downtown. They want to support it. So they got to give them a reason to. They've got to put a product out on the field now. They've got to take advantage of that. You have one more shot with Diego Pavia to really make an impact in the NIL landscape. Because if you can, you're going to have a lot of eyes on you. Your brand is going to be even better. They have to enhance their brand. All right. Their brand is going to be even better. The new stadium is going to be rocking, right? It's not a huge stadium, and that's okay. But the experience has to be great, and you have to get fans in the seats that are willing to support this thing. And you have to get the donations. You have to get the businesses on board. You have to get them, and you have to create an all-in type of approach. And with the product actually on the field, now you've got the pieces. The depth is improving, so you should be able to never have another Georgia State game from last year where it's just complete and utter disaster from the start. You should, against the top 10 Missouri, you win that game this year. Against, when you have Texas on the ropes, you finish them off. You don't get down behind South Carolina big. You find different ways to attack. Your strength and conditioning program has those guys ready to roll. You've got to be out in the community. Your social media presence has got to continue to improve, which it's out there and it's great. It's got to continue on an upward trend. You've got to give people a reason to think Vandy is cool. And Vandy playing in a bowl game, they had a lot of opportunity to market that. They had a lot of opportunity to get eyes on Vandy football. Diego Pavia doing all his media hits and the confidence that he brings to the program, like that, all that stuff works. The story with him and Eli Stowers being best friends, it just works. It just has to be one of those environments that, hey, I want to go to Vandy and I want to uphold what Diego Pavia started. Diego Pavia has a chance to be a legend for laying the foundation to the brand new Vandy. Now, this is an NFL example, so it may not be completely apples to apples, but the Detroit Lions went from one of the most consistently terrible franchises in the NFL to now being in the upper echelon within the last 3 years. Within the last 3 years, Dan Campbell came in, and he was the fuse. He was the catalyst that started that whole resurgence for the Detroit Lions. And it was his actions, it was his willingness, it was his toughness, his grit, his belief in his guys that got everybody on board with the Detroit Lions. And when that happened, they started winning games. And when you win games, you have a starving fan base that was just itching, dying to come out and support them. And what do? They support. And the Lions are one of the best franchises recently in the NFL. They have a great coach. They have a great system, great GM, great owner. You know, the fans have been phenomenal for them. I think Vandy has a potential to be very, very similar in a college football type of way, right? They have a chance to really capture Nashville here with Diego Pavia. They have a chance to really make those stands black and gold. If they can do that, if they can create Vandy as a destination place for home fans, because it's not typically been that way, then you can start getting some bigger names. Because people want to play in the SEC, they just don't necessarily want to play for Vandy. And I think if they continue on this upward trend, that could very well change. They're starting to get bigger recruits, like Carson Lawrence is somebody that Vandy doesn't normally get in high school recruiting. Jack Elliott, I think, has a chance to kind of come in and really develop behind Diego Pavia and in this quarterback room. There's a lot of different things that they can do. So, and all this goes into enhancing your brand and doing that through multiple streams, being a big-time social media presence. In other words, make it cool to play at Vandy. Diego Pavia is doing a great job of that, and I think the team is feeding off of that energy, but they got to make it cool to play there. They got to make it to where, hey, I don't want to go anywhere else. I want to live in Nashville. And they got to use that. And Vandy has to use Nashville. Like, as much as Nashville is ready to support them, Vandy needs to be ready for them to support. They need to embrace the Nashville culture. They need to embed that into all their social media streams. And they are. They just need to continue to do that and continue to improve that as they go. They need to get bigger and bigger and bigger. They just need to continue to grow. I think this overhaul with everything that they're doing has been great. We're just still in the middle of it, right? You're not at the end result to where now you're getting big transfers and big recruits yet. But it's right there on the cusp. Now you just got to finish it off and have the results on the field. Hell, beat Alabama again and see what happens. Beat Texas and see what happens. Find a way to beat Tennessee on the road in Knoxville. You have a chance, man. They're reeling at the quarterback position right now. They're trying to find somebody. Is McIntyre the guy? I don't know. I mean, he's certainly talented enough to be, but I don't know how they feel about him. But they're looking for answers right now at quarterback, and so Vandy can take advantage of that. They go to Knoxville and get a win. That's huge for this market. That's huge if recruits can see, hey, I go here. They play a great brand of football, and they're going to help me with my NIL. They're going to help me with my own personal brand. Athletes need to feel like Vandy's going to enhance their brand, and that's the ticket, right? They need to show that they're going to enhance their brand by the athletes enhancing Vandy's brand it's kind of a two-way street. If they can enhance the presence of one another mutually, then in a mutually beneficial way, and you're winning games and you're more competitive, like you're going to attract bigger talent. You're going to. If you continue on this trend, you're going to attract bigger people. People want to go to a place that is starting to win, a culture that is very dynamic and family-like. People want to feel comfortable. People want to feel like they matter. People want to feel like they can go to a place that's building their brand. Why not go to one of the fastest growing cities in the United States? Why not take advantage of being in the heart of downtown Nashville and all the things that come with living in Nashville? Nashville is an up and coming market. It's about time they compete. They can use that to their advantage. They can't use blue blood status. They can't use a tradition of winning. They can't, they don't have some of the things that Ohio State has, that Georgia has, that Alabama has, that Texas has. They don't have all that. They have to use everything they possibly can. And I don't know if they ever will be able to compete with teams like Texas and NIL, because Texas has unlimited money. But they can be competitive and get a good enough coaching staff to develop that talent and be good to go. So they have a lot of potential, is the point. And they have the chance to do, if they continue with aggressive spending, if they find a way and through their performance on the field, through the experience in the stadium, and businesses understanding that Vanderbilt does care about, what their image is, what their brand is, and they focus on improving that, I think they have a chance to really strike while the iron's hot